Today we are going to talk about grammar translation. But before of that, I'm going to tell you some story, okay? It started in 20th centuries. It came language teaching. Language teaching was a method with different change and frequency modification. In that time, it was called like language teaching ideology. In 17th to 19th centuries, the study of Latin and Greek was the model to study a foreign language. They only analyzed the grammar structure. This model was followed in England, so only children go to grammar school. In that time was 16th to 18th centuries. In that school, the children only know grammar rules, translations, and how was the structure of the sentence, so it was to practice only in simple sentences. The modern language started to teach in Europe. In some schools, they started to teach only Latin. Well, we know that it was the only language that we all know. It was in 18th centuries. In that time, the teacher only used a book and they only base it on the examples that the book have. So they only have a rhetoric teaching. They only give vocabulary that it will be used to translate the sentence. So these sentences only follow a structure. The only goal to teach the grammar it was only to know how to write. So the speaking was not important for that time. They only use the read to translate and translate to read. The idea the teacher that only have to teach was only based on the book and only translate, so they not have to put attention if the student speak well or have a good pronunciation. So the only thing that was important is only repeat, repeat, and repeat. So in that time was 19th centuries, and the students only follow the instruction that the teacher gives or gives today. So they have some problems because they have to follow a structure. If they don't put attention in the structure of the sentence, they have problems to understand or how to use that. So this method was really a strange idea to teach a foreign language. This approach of foreign language teaching was known as grammar translation. This method only was used in German. It was a part of Europe, so then passed to United States. In United States have a different method to teach a language. So the language of Latin and Greek disappeared. So in United States they start to teach by her own language. So they started to use this method, grammar translation. This used only in the children or in special people that have to know a new language. The first experiments of grammar translation were John Medinger, H. Ollendorff, Karl Potts, and John Seidenstrucker. They all together propose or suggest different characteristics of grammar translation. The first characteristic of grammar translation is Read a lot. It was a goal to understand the foreign language. Then we have to understand the rules. These rules could help us to understand the structure of the sentence. Then we have to memorize and analyze the grammar rules um, to understand the morphology and syntax of that the sentence could have in a test. The second characteristic is reading and writing. It was most important, so the speaking and listening is less. The teacher only based on the reading that the student have to know a foreign language, and the writing that they copy in a correct way the sentence or the text that they was reading. The third characteristic is the vocabulary. The vocabulary that they used was based on a text. In that text, they only choose special words that the student have only to memorize. In a typical grammar translation, they only give rules, and that rules were illustrated and only give a small explanation. So the student only have to memorize and relate it with the illustrated that they have. So the exercise that the teacher give to understand this part, they only was based only in translation exercise. The fourth characteristic is the practice. And the student have to develop in sentences. So they know or they was learning the different rule of grammar. So they can use this and apply in a sentence. So they can read a sentence and then translate. But it was so difficult for a student of secondary, and the idea of grammar translation is to be more easy for that group of students. The fifth characteristic is to emphasize in the accuracy. So the students have a more level to know how to translate. So the teacher gave today a big text and they have to translate all together. So this is a big practice today, and to demonstrate that the techniques and rules of grammar translation were easy and understand for they. So if they can translate in a correct way the text, so they have to demonstrate that they know a lot of grammar translation. The sixth characteristic is grammar deductively. So the structure of grammar translation that the teacher teach to the students, they have to follow to understand a new text. So they can know how to make that. So the teacher gave a new rule, and that rule was the syllables. That syllables are another part of grammar translation. So the new rule that the teacher gave to the students was the syllables. So the syllable was following by structure. So that structure helped to the student to understand and to practice more into a new text and translate it. The last characteristic is when the students of native language learning know how to translate a text or a sentence, so they are able to understand all the words that are included in a text, so they don't have to have problems. Grammar translation dominates the most part of Europe, so some schools use this method to teach a new language. They always base it on the rules of grammar and vocabulary. Then they use it to practice, to repeat in some sentences. So in reading and writing was the most important skill for that method. Grammar translation method is not a common method to use nowadays. So some teachers use it because they know that it's more easy to understand and to know a new language. But it's not like that. Because in some cases it's not easy to memorize rules and only repeat sentences with the same rules. We don't have to forget the structure of the sentences are not the same for different things that we have to say. So, grammar translation methods are used in some countries to teach a new foreign language. The advantage of grammar translation are that the student can understand the context of the sentence because the teacher translates all. Then the student can recognize some features of two different languages. And third, the students can study alone, so they have the ability to be more independently. The disadvantage of wrong translation are that the teacher don't have the big ability or a very high ability because they only follow a structure. Then we have that the students don't produce their own sentences. Then the other practice is less because we don't spend time to practice, so we only read and repeat and write obviously. Students have difficulty to relate the language. Grammar translation gives false idea of what is a language and the relationship that they have between another language.